Somewhere in America right now, someone is standing at a gas pump, making intense eye contact with a stranger's bumper sticker, just to avoid making eye contact with the actual stranger 3 feet away. Nothing happened. No argument, no crisis. Just two humans standing near each other, both silently praying the other one doesn't try to start a conversation. This is happening 1,000 times a day, in gas stations, elevators, DMV lines, and grocery store checkouts across the entire country. And almost nobody has ever stopped to ask, why does something this small feel this loaded? Here's the theory. America has quietly built an entire underground rulebook for avoiding conflict. And nobody ever signed it, nobody ever read it out loud, but everybody's somehow fluent in it. Today, we're breaking that rulebook open, one uncomfortable little moment at a time. Stick around for the last one, because it's the one that explains all the others, and it's the one nobody wants to admit is true. Let's start with the one that happens before you've even finished walking in the door. The "How are you" script. Hi, how are you? Good, you? Good. Nobody asked a real question. Nobody gave a real answer. It's not a conversation. It's a password exchange to prove you're both socially functional enough to complete a transaction. Psychologists call this a phatic exchange. Communication that exists purely to maintain social bonds, not to transmit actual information. The content is meaningless. The ritual is everything, which is why breaking the script feels almost illegal. Try actually answering honestly. Not great. My dog's sick and I got audited. And watch the cashier's face short circuit like you just fed a computer a math problem it wasn't built for. You didn't hurt them. You broke the code. Now, take that same discomfort with honesty and drag it somewhere with way higher stakes and way worse lighting. The DMV Silence Treaty. Nowhere in America is small talk more heavily rationed than the DMV. Everyone in that room has already accepted their fate. They're going to be here for 2 to 4 hours, possibly longer than some marriages last. And yet, almost nobody talks to each other. Rows of strangers, shoulder to shoulder, staring at a number on a slip of paper, like it's a lottery ticket, in complete silence. Nobody drafted this rule. Nobody voted on it. But everyone in that room is somehow following the exact same unspoken treaty. Acknowledge that the other person exists, and then never, ever engage with that fact again. It's not coldness. It's actually a kind of politeness, everyone quietly agreeing to let everyone else suffer in peace. The dark joke, the DMV might be the only place in America where the social contract briefly improves. Nobody's performing happiness. Everyone's just quietly dying inside together, and somehow that's more honest than the grocery store. From there, let's move outside into the parking lot, where things get slightly more feral. The parking lot. Standoff 2 cars, one open spot. Both drivers saw it at the same time. What follows is a wordless, high-stakes negotiation involving blinkers, inching forward, and just enough eye contact to communicate, I will not be the one who backs down. Nobody says a word. Nobody needs to. This is pure nonverbal psychology, a dominance ritual, dressed up as a parking situation. Researchers who study road and parking behavior point out that people become measurably more territorial and aggressive the moment they're inside a vehicle, a phenomenon sometimes linked to a sense of protected anonymity. You're not really you in there. You're a slightly angrier, slightly more entitled version of you, wrapped in 2,000 pounds of steel, defending a rectangle of asphalt like it's ancestral land. Then, there's the version of this that happens over the phone, where the fake friendliness somehow gets even weirder. The forced customer service politeness. Something is broken. The company clearly messed up. And yet, the entire call must open with, "Hi, how are you doing today?" from both sides, before either party is allowed to address the actual problem. This isn't a coincidence. It's a scripted de-escalation tactic. Companies train employees to open with warmth, because it lowers the emotional temperature of an angry customer before the real conversation even starts. It works because it hijacks that same emphatic exchange reflex from earlier. You've been trained since childhood to respond to friendliness with friendliness, even when you're furious. So you end up doing something deeply strange, calmly saying, "I'm doing well, thank you," to a customer service rep, 30 seconds before you unleash 6 months of pent-up rage about a billing error. Two completely different emotional states, stacked on top of each other, held together by absolutely nothing but a social script neither of you chose. Speaking of swallowing your real reaction, here's the phrase that does that job better than any other. The no worries reflex. You've been standing outside for 23 minutes. They finally show up, mumble something about traffic, and you hear yourself say it before you've even decided to. No worries. There were worries. There were, in fact, several worries, and you just personally voted to erase all of them in under 1 second. American social conditioning treats visible frustration as a personal failing, as if being annoyed makes you the problem, not whatever inconvenience just happened to you. So instead of saying what actually happened, you perform the emotional equivalent of sweeping it under a rug that's already lumpy with 100 other things you swept under it before. It's efficient in the moment. It's also a slow-motion pressure cooker because none of that frustration goes anywhere. It just gets filed away, quietly, in the same folder as every other no worries you've ever said and not meant. Now, let's watch that same swallowed frustration go somewhere even worse. Online, where it doesn't disappear, it just goes quiet. The group chat that won't die, but also won't live. Every American has at least one group chat that hasn't had a real message in 11 months. 16 people. 0 conversation. And yet, if you tried to leave it right now, your thumb would hover over that button for a solid 10 seconds before backing away, because leaving requires an explanation nobody wants to give. There's actually a name for what's happening here: conversational entropy. Group chats naturally drift toward silence as more people join, because responsibility for replying diffuses across everyone, meaning no one feels personally obligated to respond. Add one more person, and the whole thing quietly loses another degree of life. But leaving is worse than staying silent. Leaving is a statement. Staying is just nothing, forever. So the group chat becomes a digital ghost town that everyone still technically lives in, a shared social obligation nobody enjoys and nobody will end, sitting there, unread, like a lease nobody signed, but everyone's still paying. And finally, when the frustration has nowhere left to hide digitally, it finds its way onto actual paper. The passive-aggressive note. Something happens in a shared space, a stolen parking spot, a missing package, a neighbor's dog. The average American's first instinct is not a conversation. It's a note, written, printed, sometimes laminated, always devastatingly polite. Just a friendly reminder is, statistically, one of the most quietly threatening sentences in the English language, and everyone who's ever received one instantly understood the subtext. This is what happens when direct confrontation feels socially forbidden, but the frustration still needs somewhere to go. So it gets rerouted into paper, passive phrasing, and a smiley face doing an enormous amount of emotional labor to disguise pure rage. The real pattern. Here's what all of these actually have in common, and it's the part that should genuinely bother you. Every single one is a workaround, a way of managing real frustration, real anger, real discomfort, without ever actually expressing it directly to another human being's face. The scripted greeting, the DMV silence, the parking lot standoff, the fake customer service warmth, the no worries, the dead group chat, the passive-aggressive note. They're not random quirks. They're all the same coping mechanism, wearing 7 different outfits, and maybe that's not even a flaw. Maybe it's just the quiet, absurd price of living shoulder to shoulder with millions of strangers every single day. can't have a real conversation with all of them, so you build 1,000 tiny scripts instead, just to get through the parking lot, the phone call, the group chat, in one piece. The frustration doesn't vanish, it just learns to wear something more polite. And now that you've seen it once, you'll probably notice it everywhere. In line at the coffee shop, in your last work email, in the note you almost left on someone's windshield last week. If you recognized yourself in at least 4 of these, you're not broken. You're just fluent in a language nobody ever taught you on purpose. Which one hit closest to home? Tell me in the comments. I guarantee the no worries one is going to start some arguments. And if you want more of these deep dives into the weird invisible rules running American life, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.